Hello, welcome everybody. If we haven't met before, my name is JP Michel, and started a company called SparkPath. Our goal is to help young people reach their potential, and over 100,000 students have worked with our unique tools, including at some of the biggest and smallest institutions in the world: schools, schools, middle schools, high schools, colleges, universities, and I wrote a book called The World Needs You, which really was your story. The educators that are using what's called the challenge mindset and challenge cards, how are they making these concepts come to life? And our work's been featured a little bit all over the place. And I'm really lucky to have a great team. So I have two staff here that I want you to meet today. Some of you have already met them, Ali and Jody. Ali, can you just say a quick hello?
Hey everyone, I'm Allie, project manager at SparkPath and designer of the career myth cards.
Um, I am Jody. I see some familiar faces and names here. I just help the organization run smoothly. I help JP out, a lot of customer service. I know I've spoke to quite a few of you with setting up accounts and stuff like that. So I'm happy to be here.
Right. So two things I'll add about Ali and Jody that are relevant to you on the call. If I show you a card, a career myth card, and you say, wow, that looks beautiful. That's simple, elegant, inviting. That's because of Ali. That's what you should know. And second, if you order the career myth cards or the challenge cards or one of our tools and they get to you, that's because of Jody. It doesn't matter who goes on strike. Jody will find a way to get them to
I will
you.
ship them to you. I will
For
personally come to you.
That's right. For context, there was a strike, a Canada Post strike that we've been dealing with the last 2 months, and Jody made some minor miracles happen for people to get their cards on time. So that's the Spark Path team that you know about. Nicola Edwards is all part of our team, and she's had her hands over this Career Myth project from inception. Huge welcome to everybody joining here. What are we going to do together today? Here's the breakdown. Number one, I want to share a story of a painful conversation I had with a student last week that had to do with career myths. Then I want us to play as a group with different myths. Do we agree or disagree? Then I want to walk you through the process, our learning process over the last few months about how we change students' minds about career myths. I'll give you a hint. Telling them what to think doesn't work that well. Trust me, because I've tried and I've failed. Okay. Then I want to show you a tool that we built to help you break down career myths called the Career Myth Cards. And lastly, I want to share with you the exact principles we developed to create the tool Career Myth Cards. This last part really important to me. I got an email before the webinar with a great question, a fair question. They said, this webinar, Career Myth Cards, is it about a product or is it about an approach? And I've done a dozen of these webinars over the last 4 or 5 years, and we have created tools at SparkPath that are supposed to broaden the horizons of your students and make you go deeper in your work. However, I've always wanted to share my principles with you because the ideas that we're creating are free. I like to use the word free here because they're very accessible in any way possible. What that means today is that everything that we did to develop our approach to career myth cards can be used to tackle career myths in very different ways. You do not need to use our tool to be able to do this. I think you're already doing this on your own, and I want to see how these principles resonate or don't resonate with you. That's just part of our philosophy and our approach, and I wanted that to be clear right off the bat. We do have time for Q&A, so I expect this to be a participative discussion. We've got more participants than we usually do for this webinar, which I'm thrilled about. Looks like there are 140, 150 of us in here so far, and Ali and Jody will be monitoring the chat, so please keep your questions, comments going. Let's start. Last meet I met with Alex, okay, and uh, the issue with Alex is a classic issue that you've heard before, okay? Their parent reaches out to SparkPath and they want to find out, like, my teen doesn't know what they want to do. And we know how to help, and you know how to help, don't you? We're going to find great options for this person. So here's what we did. I want to show you the way I approached this with Alex. I Let me show you. Here's a hint of a tool that's in development that's not ready yet for consumption, but this is the Life Design Journal that we've been experimenting with, and we've used this with over 100 students in different classes. And Alex and I went through different steps in the Life Design Journal. This, by the way, we want to publish this in the spring or in the summer by the time we're done all of our research and development. So what I got to do with Alex is help them flip the model. Some of you are very familiar with this approach. We found challenges that Alex wanted to work on and not job titles that they wanted to fit into. And what we did next is we really flipped the model. We said, well, listen, why do you want to work on those challenges? And we got some really interesting answers. And then we really looked at, well, what are the companies that are working on this? What are the jobs available? What's the education? And we're doing it in really exciting ways. We develop missions that combine all of their different interests. Look at this one, build analytical tools that optimize sports and performance metrics. That's a sports data analyst. And what do you need to learn to be able to do that? Anyways, I got excited talking about this, and so did Alex. Okay, so we used ChatGPT to find real companies in where they live in the GTA, like the Toronto area in Canada. Real companies, we found real people working on that, real job descriptions, and the whole thing happened very fast, very engaging. Great, right? No, not great enough. What was missing for Alex? Well, the reason that Alex was sent to me in the first place was that they were paralyzed. Paralyzed because they believe this career myth or this limiting belief that if I make the wrong choice right now, there's no way of going back. They're paralyzed by this fear. I know you know exactly what I'm talking about because you meet with paralyzed students, even adults, constantly. So here's how I felt as the career coach in this situation. I didn't do the pre-work required to address this limiting belief in order to maximize all the great options that we found. And what are the consequences of that? Well, how likely is Alex to feel more confident, get engaged, take follow-up action, do the research, do the assignments I'm going to send them? They're still in that mode of being paralyzed and being afraid. Have you met with students that also believe that if I make the wrong choice, there's no way of going back? It sounds dramatic, doesn't it? But that's really how they feel. So, can we play this game together? Because I think this is a potential limiting belief. So, here's what I want to do. I want to, let's do this with a poll, Ali. Can we look at this? This is one of the career myth cards, by the way. When you look at this, do you agree or disagree? If I make the wrong choice, there's no way of going back. Can you play along? We've got how many people here? 159. Let's find out quantitatively what people think. And by the way, feel free to add nuances or thoughts or reflections in the chat if you have opinions about this particular statement, one way or the other. The reason this is relevant for Alex is because I wish I had done this before showing them the great options. I wish I had brought this up. I think almost everyone voted. We got 136 votes out of 160. Is that good enough, Ali? Just to
That's
see
perfect.
the stats?
Yep. 88%.
Yeah.
Let's end this, and I'm going to share the results with everyone now. You should be able to see. We got 10% agreement, 90% disagree with that statement.
Okay. Interesting. Here's what I wish I could have shown Alex before we worked together. What if I'd shown Alex this statement? What difference would it make if you chose to believe this? Even if I make a wrong choice, I can change to a path that is better for me. And look at this tidbit of data here to add context. Changing careers is increasingly common. Over 50% of people have pivoted at least once. 50%? Wait a minute. Alex might say, well, I have two parents, and they didn't pivot. Okay, well, that's a small sample size to analyze how people go through their careers with your two parents. Like there's 2 billion, there's 6 billion people working in the world. I don't know. Do you know what I mean? Like 2 out of those billions is a small sample size. This is interesting research. Could this help Alex move the needle on their belief? if Alex thought, for example, that there's no way of going back, just knowing that 50% of people pivot, might they think differently about this option? Dealing with these career myths before we discover fascinating career options can help Alex be more open minded. That's what we found so far. And using this technique of thinking through myths, identifying them, labeling them, letting Alex reflect on them, showing relevant facts, inviting to different beliefs has led to some very interesting career conversations over the last few months. Let's keep playing together. And then eventually I want to get your thoughts on this process. I just want to show you a few more examples just to see how you think about this process, okay? Let's play again. This time we'll do a classic. Follow your passion is great advice. Ooh. If you go on YouTube, I'm sure you could find a lot of great videos that say, yeah, follow your passion. And I'm sure you can find a lot of great videos that say, do not follow your passion. What's the right answer? That's kind of a joke, right? What's the right answer? There's not necessarily a right answer here. Ali, I'm watching the polls, and this is a split. This group is split on this idea.
Yep, we'll let a
We've
few
got,
last people answer, and then I'll
yeah,
end.
we've got 136, 137. That's pretty good. I think that's almost everybody.
All right, here come the results.
Can you see the results, Jody?
Yeah, I can. I can see
Okay,
it.
great. So I want to know what Alex believes, right? So I'm going to ask agree or disagree here. And I want to share some ideas with Alex. I'm really concerned, by the way. I'll be candid because what I've learned is that only 20% of young people can articulate a passion that actually guides their life choices. So my biggest concern with this one is, well, Alex might say, I don't have a passion. What do I do now? I've got a lot of ideas for what I do now, what you can do now, Alex, but I don't want you to be paralyzed by your lack of passion. I don't want you to hope that you need a passion before you start. I do want you to like what you do. I do want you to balance the intersection of being good at something, enjoying it, and doing what the world needs. And this type of reflection can come from a conversation after exploring a career myth. I want to know Alex's point of view. Do you understand there's a subtle aspect here where instead of being the expert career person who comes in to lecture on how careers actually work, I'm letting Alex decide. That's a unique way of looking at this, and I'm going to justify that later on when I show you our principles and the research we did behind this. But there's a reason I'm going to let Alex decide. Do I want to use passion or not? When do I use it? How do I use it? Do I agree or disagree? I'm putting a lot of power in Alex's hands. Okay, we're going to do one more, and then I want to get your reflections on this way of looking at things. So I'm going to ask Alex this time, hey, agree or disagree? I need to know exactly who I am before I start exploring career options. By the way, we spent so much time crafting these. I found the funniest video of me this summer sending Ali an email. It was the genesis of the idea of the career myth cards. And I told Ali verbatim, Ali, I think we need career myth cards. I'm going to take 3 hours and just hammer them out. Do you remember?
Oh, I remember this. 3 hours. That's it.
6 months later, we're at over 100 hours in developing these. That's not even including the hours that our pilot participants used to develop these. But we crafted them. Can you see how we crafted them? It's almost as if we created little traps because we wanted to add nuances that would generate attention, not attention, excuse me, generate tension that would lead to productive reflection and discussions. Okay, I think we got enough votes for this, Ali.
Okay, sharing results.
Look at some of the words here. The word exactly, the word before. All of these were put there on purpose because I want to get Alex thinking. Okay. What difference would it make, Alex, if you chose to believe I will discover more about who I am while I explore career options? That's not the traditional model. The traditional model in careers is find out exactly who you are, then go out and do that thing. We'll match you. You'll take a career test that measures your interests. It will match you with the right job title forever. You know, I've been challenging this idea for years, and the research doesn't justify this matching hypothesis, right? What if self-discovery is also a byproduct of your career exploration, not a prerequisite? It's possible that Alex has never heard this idea before. And what's going to be their reaction? You know, is this going to be freeing? Is this going to help them explore a bit more? Okay, I want to get your thoughts on this approach. So give me a second. I'll give you a question to ask. I just want to show you a few student reactions that we've gotten from these cards. Okay. So first of all, I asked you to vote, agree or disagree, and you did that as the career expert that you are. Okay. One other way we could have played this game is I could have asked you, what will your students say? And then you could have voted as them. Let me share some student answers. I'm not going to give you raw data, but just some general impressions. This particular statement, students tend to agree with this. They're paralyzed by making the wrong choice. They're scared of wasting money. They're scared of wasting time. They're scared of the underlying embarrassment of not being on the right path. They're scared of disappointing other people, their parents, their friends. This one brought a lot of fear. Follow your passion. You were split on this. So are students. Okay, they understand that they can do something that they enjoy. But for some of them, the difference between enjoying what you do and feeling passionate about it, they haven't thought about the nuances. And this led to great discussions that differentiated what's enjoying your job, what's passion, what's being energized, what's being motivated. And it freed a lot of students from this idea that following your passion is picking one right job title forever and that you commit to, right? That was very freeing for a lot of them. For this one, this was very age dependent. For some students that had done no self-awareness work in the past, no interest inventories, no strengths assessment, no values reflections, they're like, no, I need some self-awareness. I need a little bit. I need a little bit. And who can disagree with that? However, you've also met with some people that have way overdone this. I met with students that they said, I've done every online career quiz I could find. The Harry Potter personality quiz, like they've done everything. So they're kind of paralyzed at this self-awareness step, and they haven't thought to look outside and thought, I'm going to start exploring stuff, trying stuff, putting my strengths in action, and then I'm going to go from there. Okay. This activity that we just did, can you give me some of your general reactions? I have two questions for you. One is, what did you like the most about this activity? What did you like the least? Two questions. I'm going to write them in the chat a lot, but feel free to type in. I'm going to read everything you say probably after the webinar. What did you like most? And what did you like the least? I know that's a little bit, I'm pigeonholing you with this question, and feel free to add comments or questions or reactions. I'm going to give you 30 seconds to think about it now. And while you're thinking about it, while you're writing your comments down in the chat, I'm going to look at some of the comments that some people said here. Career paths are not linear. Most successful individuals face twists and turns. I think aspiration is a process. As students, sometimes not really sure. Yeah, that's great. Actually, I love this comment. And I think what I've been thinking about for the last 6 months is, how do I convince students that career paths are not linear? This is really important. Okay, it's going to come back to my principles, because what I found is that when I come in as the expert and I speak to students and I say career paths are not linear, they say sure. They hear it, but they don't believe me yet. So I'm trying to find out, how do I change their mind? How do I prove it? That's why I've gone through this deep process to think about how we can change their minds. I'm going to show you exactly that process and break it down now, because I found that if I just said it as an expert speaker, I didn't change enough hearts and minds. And I want to find out, how can I change more hearts and minds? I want to read through all those comments. Ali, I don't know if you've already skimmed this, if there's one that stands out to you. If not, I'm just going to keep reading what I see.
Yeah, there's a lot of really valuable ones. Keep
Yeah.
going, JP.
Great. Liz, I use the word students a lot, but you use clients. That's fine. I think it applies to both. And a lot of people resonated with your comments here. Undoing. That's a great word, Liz. Thanks for adding that. A lot of people liked what you wrote. Undoing is a great word. I've used unlearning as part of this process, um, which I think is useful. So thank you for adding that. That's a good one. Many parents in the US often buy into this. So that's one comment I've had from folks is that these career myths are sometimes limiting beliefs that we have, adults have, parents have, other people have. So my reaction to that is, yeah, this is a tool that, just like the challenge cards, can be used with people of all ages. I do encourage parents to go through the challenge cards exercises as well. Great intro. Yeah, Marcella, this is really meant to be an intro exercise to careers. Yeah. Leslie, the data piece on each follow-up the slide. Yeah, every slide, every myth, we try to share some supporting evidence that would open up the students to new possibilities. Ray, thought-provoking. Yeah, that was the spirit of it. Quickly identifies myths. Thomas, I love the speed element. Like it's always important for me because students want things really fast. So like I like the speed element. The idea that they get to choose the speed as well. Ali, anything else you want me to address before I move on?
Yeah, still have comments rolling in. I appreciate that from everyone. We're going to keep going through, but yeah, JP, let's move on.
Yeah, Jenny, this is good. Say things aloud that students are already thinking, but might be reluctant to say. That's really well said because one thing Alex said to me in that meeting is when I showed that card, by the way. I showed this limiting belief and I did it so poorly. Okay. With Alex, I found out, oh, yeah, this person's paralyzed. I know exactly what myth they're believing in. So I showed him we don't have a digital version of this yet. We have a physical version. So I showed the card and he caught me. He caught me in trying to be the adult expert telling him what to believe. So here's what he said, quote, I know what you want me to answer, but I also know what I believe. So then I'm like, oh, I missed my chance. I missed my chance. He knows I'm trying to force this belief, or excuse me, Alex, they know that I'm trying to force this belief, and that won't work. If I had done this proactively before, I would have had way more of a chance to break down. So this whole this idea of failing, I really like this word. It might be too provocative for you, but I want to show you why it resonates so well with me because when I designed a facilitator guide around career myths, it helped me break down the process of, well, what does it take to actually change someone's mind? So let me get to that in a second. This is a tool that, Ali, we can share at the end of the webinar, this facilitator guide, because it has our actual process for how to change people's minds about career myths. And we've collected our best know-how for how this works. And hopefully this is a tool you can add to your menu. So who is this for? Who's Alex? Is Alex like the early path warrior, the overly rigid goal setter, the last minute planner? For each one of these students, we thought about the different limiting beliefs that could hold them back. And we crafted career myth cards to help them think about where they can go next. And you can see that this addresses different needs at different ages and different stages. And we've already said it applies both to adults and students. And I think we've already shown you our breakdown for what we wanted to highlight for these myths. We added a provocative statement on each card, agree or disagree to let students decide. We've got a visual as a shortcut to engage people who are more, interested in images than words. And then on the back of the card, we've got data, research, or quote for the reframe. We've got an invitation for change. We have a new empowering belief they might want to take on, suggestions for next steps. The spirit behind all this information is that they get to process new ideas and decide for themselves. So this was a big deal for me to think through. So I needed some help. So I went back to look at the evidence, and I'm not sure if this is big enough on your screen, by the way, but some of you might have seen stages of change. This makes me think of stages of grief. Kubler-Ross created this interesting curve, and I really resonated with the first step, shock. And when I was talking through this with Ali, I said, Ali, like some of the biggest changes, most radical changes I made in my life, the first time someone told me about them, I said, no, yuck. I disagree. That's ridiculous. And I did that, and I consider myself like a mature, open-minded person, but that's literally how I react to these ideas. Years down the line, now I'm actually doing those things that I initially resisted. So I think some students might go through the same process. Initially, they're like, there's no way that, I should not consider following my passion. There's no way that that's true, that it's going to be okay even if I change my mind. There's no way that I don't need to pick one thing from. There's That's possible. So I used this model and applied it to what I saw students go through as they were thinking through new beliefs. They could start with resistance. They might doubt the evidence. Eventually, they might be open to reflecting about new possibilities. It might lead them to gather more information, ask questions, consider changing their minds, and then eventually integrating the change. So one question I would have for you, as you've done career myth busting for your whole career, this is just for fun, okay? This question, what's better when you take a student from being open to integrating the change, or when you take someone from shock, yuck, resistance to doubt? And for me, as maybe we have a perfectionist tendency, you want to get someone all the way to the end, right? They integrate the change. Okay, they don't need to do, like, I've got a new way of looking at this. I'm free. I'm done. Let's go. But this first step of going from resistance to doubt, that may be even more valuable. Even if today Alex doesn't commit to, changing their minds, just going from here to here is extremely valuable. I'll call it a little miracle. Both are little miracles in their own way. So I'm not sure how you see your myth busting in action, but I wanted to highlight the value here, because the truth is that just like the grief, if you've seen these grief steps, for mourning, for example, a loved one, it's not always a linear journey that you go through this, right? Like maybe you go back, you go forward, you skip ahead, you go back. And I found the same thing happen for myths. As I was using this tool, somebody asked me, oh, this is great. I love your new myth cards. Why don't you just tell students that they're all myths? And that to me killed the entire purpose. Because if we really want Alex to stay engaged, to change their minds, they need autonomy. It's going to keep them engaged, feeling empowered. Different students have different openness to change. Some are overwhelmed by change. Some don't think change is okay. It's okay to change their minds. So you have a whole range of students that you might work with, and it might not be easy for you to tell who's open or not open to change yet. If I tell them the way you think is wrong, this is how you should think, I might make things worse, might create more pressure. They might double down on their limiting beliefs instead of feeling open to change. By the way, I love that sentence, telling them how to think, because I've found myself guilty of doing that. It's like I want to be inspirational or motivational, but I end up telling them how to think, and it's very dangerous. It can make things worse. What we're really good at, better than other people in other fields, is creating this psychological safety. And if you create a student-led process that's safe and every belief is okay, every perspective is okay, that might make them more likely to change. And then some of them are ready to change or not. So those are some of the reasons why telling them these are all career myths is not part of the formal process. By the way, if you're curious, in this guide, Ali and I created this short video of the mechanics of the sort. And I'll just tell you really quickly. You can watch this after if you want, but here's my vision. I give Alex the cards and I say sort it into 3 piles. The cards you agree with, disagree with, or are unsure. You follow me? I'll show you again. This card says, I will have to choose between money and happiness. Alex, do you agree, disagree, or are you unsure? By the way, I don't know if you've come across this issue, but I find that the students I meet with are so worried about finances. And a lot of them agree. I'm gonna have to be either I'll be happy or either I'll make good money. Wow, what a wild way of looking at your life. What if you what difference would it make if you chose to believe my career can offer both financial happiness and, excuse me, financial stability and personal happiness? And then we can prove it. Like there's so many paths that can offer both. And to me, when students shift their mind on this, it opens them up to new possibilities. Okay, let me be more balanced here. So that's how the sort works. We let the students sort into 3 piles. Then in the unsure pile, they're going to read the back of the card. So they're doing no reading of the back of the card for the first part. They read the back of the card, and then they get to decide, okay, now that you've read that, do you agree or disagree? So imagine this process. As a coach, you're using your quietness as a strength. You're letting them work through it. You know, for my language for myself is I'm turning down the volume on inspirational speaker, motivator, just being quiet. It's a student-led process. They're working through this. Imagine the questions they'll ask you. Imagine the fears that they'll bring up. And that's where you can work your coaching magic, right? You'll be able to ask questions to provoke them. You're not going to tell them how to think. You're a trained listener. Like you're going to have great ideas about how to get them to think differently. And I can't wait to hear about how you go through this process. Just to wrap up the suggested instructions that we've created for this, after they've sorted their unsure pile, then they go to their agree pile. Do the same thing. Look on the back, decide if you agree or disagree. And some of them will change their mind. So when I first went into the classroom and I saw students, choose different cards and put them in their agree pile, I'll give you one that felt heartbreaking. People like me don't have the power to make a difference. People like me don't have the power to make a difference. Some students agreed with this. Ouch. Do you see how that could be a limiting belief that would stunt everything else you're going to do with them? The student, to me, is not going to listen, engage, participate in everything else you have to offer, creating great options, showing them how to get a job, prepping for the interview, if they don't believe they have the power to make a difference. Therefore, every minute you invest in tackling this myth will pay off dividends because you may give them an empowering belief that says, you know what? The world needs me. And in this case, we gave one example. There's going to be 85 million jobs that are going to go unfilled because of a talent gap. So a student might read that and feel encouraged. Wow, the world needs me. You know how I feel about the sentence, the world needs me. I wrote the title of the book. For some of you who've already read this, The World Needs You, because what I learned is that a lot of students were showing up to see you believing the world doesn't need me. And I thought, well, if the student shows up to see you thinking the world doesn't need me, how can they truly engage and listen to everything that you have to do? So do you see how the spirit of this is that we want to maximize their ability to get helped, to get coached by you? Because otherwise, how can they listen? How can they engage to what you have to do? All right, let me wrap that up. I'm giving you maybe a little bit too much information. The way we wrap up the exercise is the student goes through the process. They've got cards in their disagree pile and their agree pile. We didn't focus on changing their minds on every myth, every limiting belief. We found through conversations the ones that were most impactful for them, that we were focused. And then we asked them, which empowering belief is the most helpful for you right now? Is that the exact wording, Ali, that we have for that? Which empowering belief was most helpful for you right now? Did I get it right?
Yeah, which card stood out to you the most? Little softer. Open it
Yeah,
up.
okay, yeah. So let's start with that. Which card stood out to you the most? And then how can this empowering belief help you on your journey? And that's going to be so different. Remember, I showed you 6 students in that facilitator guide. Well, one of them is obsessed with linear planning. One of them wants to plan at the last minute. One of them wants one thing forever. They're all going to pick a different myth based on where they're at, what's holding them back. And then we want them to practice articulating how the new, more empowering belief can help them on their way. So that's the process we're suggesting. But as usual, just like with the challenge cards, we're very open to how you can make this idea come to life. I've got a whole bunch of suggestions about how you can implement this idea, whether you use the cards or your own approach. But let me just pause here. Can I check in, Ali? Any questions, comments, reactions so far?
Yeah, JP, we've got a great one here from Mallory, a question. Do you have thoughts on how to myth bust and promote exploration flexibility while also being empathetic on how expensive the cost of education is in the US?
That's a good one. So today we focused on busting myths. We're going to talk more about how to do that. And there's some pains I don't think we'll be able to solve. I think that the cost of education, you have to be able to help someone do the math to make it worth it. And a lot of students are stuck in the worrying stage. Like, remember when I showed you the card that said, I will have to choose between money and happiness? Some of them have no idea about money, like how to start breaking that down. Like, how much money should I make? What's a good salary? So I'm sure they have no idea how to break down, like, what education should I take on? What's the ROI? When will I be able to pay back my student debt? And that's the type of thing that we need to break down just as a myth. The conversations you have help students like Alex decide, am I going to go to in-state, out of state? How can scholarships, bursaries, financial aid help? Thanks, Stephanie, for that suggestion. So I think we need to do both.
Great. JP, we've got another good question here from Holly. Holly wants to know about sunk cost concept. And the example given is that a student might stay in a science-oriented major because they've done some classes even though they don't really like science.
Science around sunk cost fallacy, saying that we're stuck in that. Like, we've invested some time here, might as well finish it. So for me, I always want to know the problem. Like Mark Savickas asks, like, how can I be helpful for you today? So I like that question because a student might already be locked in and they don't want to change, or a student might want to change. So I'll find out exactly how stuck they are in the sunk cost fallacy, because there's a few different routes. To me, it's saying, okay, if you have 4 credits left, here's what that degree can help you do. Here's how it can help you impact the world. Here's how it can help you contribute to a challenge that you want to solve, maybe in a way you haven't thought about before. And then I flip the model. That challenge, there's people ready to hire. There's companies ready to hire people like you with alternative backgrounds. And here are the jobs they take on, and here's what else you need to learn to be able to do that. That might be a route to go down. Another route is, listen, you've only done 1 semester. Let's pump the brakes on how, if you're going to do another 3.5 semesters on this, let's look at alternative degrees. And then I'll go through the same flip model approach process. Does that make sense?
Yeah, thank you, JP. We got another more logistics question here. Is the facilitator document you've been referencing in the webinar included with the cards? I can answer that one. That facilitator guide is in our learning community. If you haven't yet joined, it's free. It's got a 7-day course. It's got tons of resources for the challenge cards and now for the career myth cards. We will send that link out along with our post-webinar email with this recording.
Thank you. Please keep the questions coming. I'm going to give an example here about how you can introduce and launch this activity. And I think there might be a cool name for this, but I call it the spectrum game. So you're in a classroom. This could be, in a high school or in a university classroom, and you have students standing on a line, a continuum. Continuum or spectrum, that might be 2 words that you use. And then you present them with a potential limiting belief. For example, students are too young to plan for their future. Agree or disagree? Okay. Better put that in the chat just so you see my words. Isn't that a fun poke you one? See how I like to provoke tension here? So I'm going to say to students, your students are too young to plan for their future. Agree and disagree. And then you watch them place themselves on the spectrum. Some agree, some disagree. And this has a lot of energy, right? Like, from the challenge face off that sometimes we get people to stand up and move in the room, and this brings a lot of energy. And then you can ask for some examples. What made you choose where you are in the spectrum and why? And then you have some debate. And then you might ask, anybody want to change their minds? Like, is there any value in changing your mind? Are you allowed to change your mind? Yes, you're allowed. Do you want to go? Do you want to move? Which way are you going to move? Oh, you moved. Tell me what made you move. And then this could be a great way to introduce the activity in a very participative way to get students thinking, okay, I get to decide what I believe. I get to change my mind when I'm presenting with new information. And the answer to this one, we all feel like this idea of too young really needs to be challenged, because students at a very young age develop interests and strengths and capabilities and stories. That's great fuel to help them explore options. I believe personally that students are too young to choose one job title forever. I wrote a whole book about that. I think they're too young to choose one job title forever. Fine. But they're not too young to do all of these other exciting things. So that's called the career belief spectrum game. And it's just one of the suggestions that we have in this activity in our facilitator guide. I've also got suggestions about how to do this in pairs or small groups. What kind of questions can you prompt that leads to good discussions? And maybe I'll tackle a few of these frequently asked questions. How are the career myth cards different than the challenge cards? The spirit is that the myth cards are about debunking limiting beliefs about careers, and the challenge cards tackle the biggest career myth, which is that you need to pick one job title forever. So instead, we show them challenges to solve. I've got suggestions about how you can connect both, and about how you use the career myth cards. Even if you don't use them before, which is my recommendations, you can use them after. And here's how. I've got some ideas. We don't have the cards in digital format yet. That's actually an ask I have of you. Once you use these ideas, let me know if it's a great tool. If it's a great tool, we'll digitize it. We'll probably partner with a school who wants to help us do this. And if you're interested in doing something like that, please let us know. And then I've got a bunch of other FAQs that I think you might be interested in. Okay. Let me summarize what we've covered so far in the following principles. What we showed you today was an approach with a student-led process to facilitate true change. I think that sometimes you can come in to do a classroom presentation and tell students to expect to be adaptable, and some will believe you. If instead of telling them, you give them some facts and let them decide for themselves, can this double, triple, can this 10x the change process for students? Are they more likely to believe you? That's what we've been researching these last 6 months, and this student-led process has been more successful than the expert authority. Okay, this is like the old model of career advisors. It's like it used to be our responsibility to match students with a job title. It used to be our responsibility to bust career myths for them. Now we're asking a different question. What if we empower them to explore their own options? What if we empower them to discover potential myths and find more empowering beliefs? Can this coaching approach lead to better results? That's what we're suggesting today. Another one of the principles that we use is that we're not going to, even though we're taking them through different myths, we're going to find the most problematic ones, the most limiting ones, the ones they need right now based on their own obstacles. And because it's a student-led process, they get to tell you what hurts them the most, what limits them the most, what they need to tackle the most. And all of this is informed in another unique principle, which is we want to create a learning machine for us. It's very obvious that we want to create a learning machine for students, but what do I mean by a learning machine for us? This is the process that we went through. The humility to say, we're not quite sure the best way to bust career myths. Some ways work, some ways don't work. The authority, expert speaking, that has limited potential. What if we engage in this process where we observe students working through these limiting beliefs themselves, and then we hear in their language what they believe, what they don't believe, what changes their mind, what doesn't change their mind? and I'm planning about learning. Excuse me, I'm planning to learn for years, and I want your help to do that. I want to hear from you. Like I tried to say this and they didn't resonate, and then I said this and it really resonated. So I think together we can create a learning machine. My vision for this is that once we digitize the myth cards, maybe you would consider creating a heat map for your classes, for your entire school to say, listen, as a district, as an institution, we're very vulnerable to these limiting beliefs. And these one our students already understand. So you can have real data that says we need to focus our workshops, our time, our energy, our meetings on these limiting beliefs because this is what's holding our students back. So instead of presenting, in a 1 hour lecture on the top 10 myths, maybe you present the top 10, but you focus on the three that actually limit your students. Do you see how this could become a data informed approach? So that's the stance that we're taking, is that there's still a lot left to learn about what holds our students back and what can help them thrive. All right, Ali, Jody, questions, comments, reaction to these principles before I move on?
Yeah, we've got a lot of comments flowing in the chat. We have a few people shouting out that digitize would be great for them. So that's awesome. What did you say they should do about that, JP?
Yeah, if a school wants to, if well, first of all, use it. First of all, use these ideas, whether you use them with your own myths or with our tool, and then let's keep the conversation going at Connexus at NCDA. Um, let's keep the conversation going and tell me if it's a great tool. And then we're going to look for partner schools who want to fund the development of this and start creating their own heat maps. So you can email us, either email me directly or email Jody at hello@mysparkpath.com. I want to make sure this is great first, and I need your help in order to do that.
Absolutely. Thank you, Jody, for putting your email down there. We got another question about parents. That's been pretty popular in the chat. People want to know how to address these myths with the parents.
I want to do the same exercise. I don't know if you have time to go through 20 myths, like the 20 cards that we created, but if you'd rather go through three, the biggest ones that parents don't understand. And again, I even though the parents look at me and they're like, okay, you wrote a book or you're the expert, I want them to work through these ideas. I know it takes more time, but every minute I invest in doing that, the parent is more likely to believe and to move on to the next step. Like these are things that these are limiting beliefs that you overcame in some cases 20 years ago. It's like giving someone a chance to catch up to where you are and letting them do it a little bit more slowly on their own terms in their own way with their own language will pay huge dividends.
Excellent. Thank you all for participating in the chat, trying to keep up here. Uh, we got a question about how to order these cards. You want to hit that one, JP?
Yeah, so we just did we're printing our first batch. So we ordered 500. We expect to sell out fast. The Canada Post strike is over. Jody's life is a little bit easier. And every time we do a webinar, I always want to do a giveaway. By the way, like we did a giveaway on LinkedIn. So we're going to do two separate things. So if you already submitted to win a deck of cards on LinkedIn, don't worry, you're still eligible for this draw. So you could win two decks, okay? So I'll just say a quick thing, if you don't mind, Ali, about LinkedIn, because there's something different that happened for me with this LinkedIn post that we did about the myth cards. Maybe you found out about this webinar through the myth post. I've never felt so unified around a topic in career development. I'll tell you why I say unified, Ali, is because the challenge cards and challenge mindset are intended to be provocative. We're trying to break free from the traditional matching approach to careers, and I'm completely okay with being disliked for that idea because I'm challenging the norm. And what I found is a huge community of people that said we want to break free from the the matching approach too. But it's divisive in that sense, and I'm completely okay with that. That's the role I've taken on for years. The career myths are different. Everyone is on board for busting career myth. Everyone is working on this, and we saw it by the amount of people that commented, reposted, sent me direct messages like this post. And Jody and I are going to be posting the winners of the LinkedIn draw. But anyways, for everyone on the webinar, we're going to give away a deck of Career Myth cards as well. So if you would like to participate in this draw, you'll see that. Can you please post the link to enter the draw in the chat as well? Or you can use a QR code, but you might be better set up to do this on your desktop. We'll give away a free deck of cards. But if you want to order them directly, we've got the list to the website as well.
Yep, getting that link in the chat here right now.
Stephanie says, I asked parents in the session with students, how many pivots launches have you had so far? This is great, Stephanie, because you know, a kid only has 2 parents probably, and it's a small sample size. You know, they might not have seen their parents change careers, and most people would at this stage. Okay, so now you've got the form to enter the contest. So now let's jump into a Q&A. We only have a few questions left. Here's what we did today. We talked about career myths, and we talked about the reason to invest time into this. And my story with Alex was to show the pain of me going too fast. I went too fast. I think I'm trying to build like a world leading system for generating meaningful career options that goes beyond interest codes, Holland codes, that flips the model, finds real companies based on challenges. I'm trying to build the best options. And yet I went too fast. I didn't address what was really troubling Alex first, and I paid the price. And I want a collective reflection from our field on what's the value of myth busting. I think so many of you said to me, yes, we work on myth busting. So I think it's worth doubling down on this important work that we're doing as part of any career conversation. Now, next, so that's the value. Next, we talked about how do you break it down? How can you make this an even more student-led process? How can you add little facts? How can you add more empowering beliefs? How can you let them decide? And I'm so curious about how you'll make this fit, you know, with the amount of time that you have. Are you going to do this one-on-one or in groups? We showed you our unique tool as well as our breakdown of our approach so that you can leverage this in your own way. And I'd love to keep the conversation going. I've got 2 suggestions. One is next week, for those of you coming to Canada for the Connexus conference, you can come and play with the myth cards and meet Jody and do that. Second, I'm pleased to announce that I was chosen as the closing keynote speaker for the NCDA conference this year, the National Career Development Association conference. So thank you. I'm really thrilled because, as you know, the National Career Development Association conference is the traditional organization that leads career development. And because they've asked me, I feel like this is adding legitimacy to your stories, because I think about you, and you're out here doing something different than the matching approach. You're using the challenge mindset, and I get to tell your story as part of the closing keynote and invite a whole bunch of new people that maybe aren't familiar with this to hear about how you're doing things differently on your campus. We know we need change in our field, and you're bringing it. So I'm really grateful to you for the stories that you're going to share with me. So that's another place where we can connect at the NCDA conference. Okay, we've only got 2 minutes left together. What else did you want to talk about that we haven't talked about yet? What other questions, comments do you have? Thanks, David. I hope to meet you at NCDA as well. Thanks for all the congrats. I appreciate it. I'm thrilled. For me, it's I can say candidly, it's a dream come true to get to have this opportunity. Thank you. Question: how do you help a student who gets excited by a career option but believes myths about the ability to enter the field because they see it as very competitive? Laura, I've got bad news for the students. You know, competitiveness has been underestimated. There's so much value in failing and trying and doing something competitive, of learning along the way, of pushing yourself. This student might have heard some limiting beliefs around, don't do something that's competitive. Don't do something with limited options because it's going to be hard or you might fail. Hard and might fail are great things. You know, it might be a great thing for you to try doing that and failing. You're going to develop these skills. It's going to lead you to something else. So what I do is I try to sell them on the value of competitiveness, the value of doing something difficult. I know in my journey, I originally studied psychology because I wanted to do sports psychology. One person told me, well, if you want to do sports psychology with professional athletes, it's going to be really hard for you to get there. They knocked me off. They knocked me off the whole thing right there. And again, I consider myself open-minded, maybe more above average in ambition. And that's it. That knocked me off because I didn't think, well, you know what? It might be worth doing, even though it's competitive. So I think you picked a great potential limiting belief to tackle. And when I use sell, I use that word delicately. Today, I told you about me selling students and telling them how to think how that doesn't work. So how can you get them to realize the importance of being competitive, of failing, of learning along the way? So thank you for bringing up. That's a great example. By the way, just like the challenge cards is not, I keep saying the challenge cards, right? This is not the dictionary of all the challenges that exist in the world. This is meant to be the fastest, most engaging way to learn the challenge mindset. The myth cards is the same. We did not write the dictionary of career myths in 20 cards. Okay. The spirit was that this would be the fastest, most engaging way for students to explore career myths. However, I want the same thing that happened in 2017. In 2017, we had about half of this, and I got a lot of angry emails from people about the challenges I forgot. And I welcome those angry emails, by the way. I love getting feedback. So I hope to do the same thing. I hope you'll send me angry emails about the career myths that we missed, that we forgot, because that's going to help us grow. And that's going to make a much better tool thanks to your feedback. So, I mean, you help take the challenge mindset idea to a whole new level. That's my invitation for you for these myth ideas. Thanks for all the encouragement. Thank you. Okay, that's it. We've got 30 seconds left. Huge thank you for being here. Can't wait to see you in person. Can't wait to hear your ideas about this. Looking forward to your feedback. Thanks for investing all this time and energy here. And I look forward to learning with you along the way. Thanks for being here. Thanks, everybody.